Captain America the Winter Soldier is a 2014 American superhero film based on the Marvel Comics character Captain America, produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. It is also a sequel to Captain America the First Avenger in 2011 and the ninth film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The film was directed by Anthony and Joe Russo from a screenplay by the writing team of Christopher Markus and Stephen McFeely. It stars Chris Evans as Steve Rogers' Captain America, alongside Scarlett Johansson, Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, Cobie Smulders, Grillo, Emily VanCamp, Hayley Atwell, Robert Redford, and Samuel L. Jackson. In the film, Captain America joins forces with Black Widow, played by Johansson, and Falcon, played by Mackie, to uncover a conspiracy within the spy agency S.H.I.E.L.D. while facing a mysterious assassin known as the Winter Soldier, played by Sebastian Stan. Markus and McFeely began writing the sequel around the release of the First Avenger in July 2011. The script draws from the Winter Soldier story arc on the comic books written by Ed Brubaker, as well as conspiracy fiction from the 1970s, such as The 3 Days of Condor in 1975. The film explores S.H.I.E.L.D., similar to how the first film explored the US military, after Rogers was shown working for the agency in the MCU crossover film The Avengers in 2012. The Russo brothers signed to direct in June 2012, and casting began the following month. The filming began in April 2013 in Los Angeles, California, before moving to Washington, D.C., and then Cleveland, Ohio. The directors used practical effects and intense stunt work, but also 2,500 visual effects shots created by 6 companies. Captain America the Winter Soldier premiered in Los Angeles on March 13, 2014, and was released in the United States on April 4th as part of Phase 2 of the MCU. The film became a critical and commercial success, receiving praise for its performances and the action sequences, and grossing over $714 million worldwide, making it the 7th highest grossing film of 2014, and received an Academy Award nomination for Best Visual Effects. A sequel titled Captain America Civil War, also directed by the Russos, was later released in 2016. The cast includes Chris Evans as Steve Rogers' Captain America, an Avenger and World War II veteran who is enhanced to peak human physicality by an experimental serum, frozen in suspended animation, and is now struggling to adjust to the 21st century. Describing his character's adjustment to the modern world, Evans said, "It's not so much his shock with technology, it's more about the societal differences. He's gone from the 1940s to today. He comes from a world where people were a little bit more trusting and threats not as deep. Now it's harder to tell who's right and who's wrong." Scarlett Johansson as Natasha Romanoff, or Black Widow, an Avenger who's highly trained spy and assassin working for S.H.I.E.L.D., who teams up with Rogers. Sebastian Stan as James Buchanan Bucky Barnes, or the Winter Soldier. Steve Rogers' childhood best friend, who has re-emerged as an enhanced brainwashed assassin after supposedly being killed in action during World War II. Regarding the character, MCU producer Kevin Feige said, "The Winter Soldier has been methodically, almost robotically, following orders for 70 years, and he never questions, he just does." Anthony Mackie as Sam Wilson, or Falcon, a former US Air Force pararescueman trained by the military in aerial combat using specially designed wingpack. Emily VanCamp as Sharon Carter, or Agent 13, a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent assigned to guard Rogers without his knowledge. Hayley Atwell as Peggy Carter, a retired military agent with the Strategic Scientific Reserve and co-founder of S.H.I.E.L.D., who's a former love interest of Steve Rogers. Robert Redford as Alexander Pierce, a senior official with S.H.I.E.L.D., member of the World Security Council and an old comrade of Nick Fury. And finally, Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now, as the first film in the MCU to be directed by the Russo brothers, who of course famously would go on to make Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, you can really see the difference with their touch. I found this to be a suspenseful and politically astute film, and Captain America the Winter Soldier is definitely a superior entry in the Avengers canon, and it's one of those films you almost need to watch twice, because there's so many little subtleties to it, and bigger stories playing out. Now, I've never really been a massive Captain America fan, but for some reason the MCU just got the character absolutely perfect, intertwining the old school style of the history of the character into the modern age, and I found his character's storyline in the series much more politically intertwined, if you will. For me, this film takes a bold step for Marvel, in the step of reducing CGI spectacle to a relative minimum in favor of reviving the pleasures of hard-hitting, old-school action, surprising character development, and intriguing suspense. I mean, there's plenty of breathless cliffhangers dictated by the genre, but it's also equally rich in tender character moments and actual character development and depth. I mean, the Captain America storyline is actually one of the more saddest storylines within the MCU. Here is a man ripped from his home in the 40s, ripped away from his love of his life, and now trying to find himself in this new age. And as I say, beneath all these magnificent action sequences and some CGI, there's a darkness and a confusion that really just lingers, and that's always made these characters so much more fascinating than we give them credit for. For me, though, here the Russo brothers are still learning the character and seeing what their limits are in terms of where they can take this character. Of course, for me, like Captain America Civil War is one of the best films in the MCU canon, but this film was leading towards that and moving it away from the first Captain America film. Chris Evans once again performs the role perfectly, and he really has been perfectly cast in the Captain America role. I also particularly enjoyed Sebastian Stan here as Bucky Barnes, the Winter Soldier, and it's wonderful to see the conflict now that Steve Rogers has to go through in fighting his former best friend. I also really enjoyed Scarlett Johansson here as Natasha Romanoff, or Black Widow, a character with a checkered past and a very complicated history, and she really brings out the depth of the character in this film. I also particularly enjoyed seeing her on-screen chemistry with Chris Evans here, and their back and forth as characters really does play out well. I enjoyed the scene when Steve Rogers sits down now with an old Peggy Carter, and they relate back to when they were in love back in the 1940s. It's a very sad and touching scene, something that the MCU tends to steer away from, but I found with this film it really took a sort of more emotional step forward in terms of maturity and character development. It was also nice to see Robert Redford in this film, and he really does play his character with the devilish charm that Redford was known for. Overall, this is a very good film, and it really took a big step in making the MCU seem a little bit more serious and a bit more mature. And now you were looking forward to where they would really take these characters. And like I said, one thing I really enjoyed was how Captain America had one of the most interesting story arcs within the whole MCU. Now, by no means is this a perfect film, and there was still a lot of work to be done. The Russo brothers were definitely laying the foundations, as it were, for what would of course be a fantastic crescendo to this phenomenal film series. Well made, good acting, and fantastic storylines with excellent character exploration. Captain America, the Winter Soldier, gets an 8.5 out of 10.